founder of Exercise to Experience. Vanessa Leone is here with us today. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for coming on the Fitness Business Podcast.
So great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so Exercise to Experience, I have to admit, I had to shoot you a little email and ask you a little bit about what this company is. You're the co-founder, and you sent me a beautiful email with a very clear description that basically, in a nutshell, and I'll let you go a little further in depth, but for one, you are a instructor education platform. And number two, you also try to work with clubs on retention with instructors and also instructor assessments. Why don't I hand the mic over to you and you can expand on that a little bit?
Great. Thank you. So we're a very small business. It's myself and my co-founder at the moment. And we came into the space quite literally in April 2020 when we decided while everyone was at home, we'd put our first instructor course on available for instructors. And we knew that there's quite a gap in the market in terms of leveling up group exercise instructors. I'm a PT as well by trade, and I've done a million courses for becoming a better personal trainer and different aspects of personal training. And the frustrating thing about group exercise is that if you want to become a better group exercise instructor, you generally have to do a different course. You have to do a bar course or a Pilates course, or you have to go do yoga teacher training. And it's very specific to the actual element or the style that you're teaching. There's nothing really out there about just how to be a great exercise instructor. And that's where we have brought our skills from there. Emma, my co-founder, is a performer at heart, and I am a science geek at heart. And together our kind of yin and yang works really well. We've both also been group exercise managers, and we've worked in small business studios. So we didn't realize how much we kind of had until we put it all together and on paper. And over the last few years, it's really developed not only from the instructor training platform, which is what we first developed, but then coming towards the back and letting businesses know how important your learning and development for your instructors are ongoing. Because if you keep them happy, if you keep them really well educated, they'll stay in your business, and then your members follow your instructors, particularly in the group X scene. Like if you think of Soul Cycle, if their instructor isn't at that particular club anymore, they're leaving to follow that instructor, and we see that a lot. So that's the main frame of our business right now.
Yeah, I know you have over 15 years experience being, like you said, in the fitness industry as a manager and just being part of the Group X experience. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you on the show today. We just thought you probably would have a lot to offer to our listeners out there that engage in group exercise.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I myself at the moment in a really interesting spot because I'm not in big box. I don't own a group exercise studio myself, and I do more than just instructing. So I kind of help the businesses that I'm working with by giving a really unique perspective. You can kind of step in as the middle person in between your group exercise instructors and your management and really figure out what's needed within the business to help them grow, whether it's member retention or whether it's instructor upskilling, whether it's a bit of a timetable audit, figuring out, are their classes stale? Is their programming working? And it's a really well-rounded offering that we can give to people. And we do it because we know how transformative group exercise is. You yourself, you would know. And you said exercise instructors they're the most passionate people in the room, and they're the ones who can really create so much change and so much feeling to so many people. I really love it.
I always have said that not only they are the most passionate people, but I also think they are truly the leaders in a health club or a boutique fitness studio, whatever it may be. Out of everybody in your staff, they're the absolute most influential. I spoke at URSA on this one year, and I'm like, who are the most influential people at the club? Group X instructors. They're the only person there, the only employee that can easily have 20, 50 people in front of them that you have their undivided attention for anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour.
You are on the money. That is one of our first platforms that we used as well. It's, they're the Instagram influencer of your business, that they are the front and center of it. And if they're not the ones shouting your message from the rooftops, if they're shouting something else, then that's really going to reflect either really poorly or really, really beneficially on your brand. And um, yeah, I just think they're really underrated in the fitness industry. So we just want to lift it up. We want to really highlight it.
I love that. I love that. So, exercise experience, you mentioned a little bit about what it is, and it was born back in April of 2020. You have a 6 week retention handbook that maybe a lot of our department heads out there listening might be curious about. Can you expand on what that is?
Sure. It's a short course, and we have it immersed in a little Facebook community so that it's really interactive. You can ask questions, but it's a series of videos and a couple of documents, and we take you through how to run an instructor assessment. So much kind of like a mystery shop. You can understand the inner workings of your classes and how they directly affect your business. Now, a lot of business owners don't necessarily know what to look for when they go in and do an instructor assessment, particularly if they're not an instructor themselves. So we kind of take them step by step into a really basic instructor assessment or a class assessment, either or, so that they can get an understanding of how their classes and instructors reflect their business and their brand.
All right. Now, it's very obvious that programming is super important for group exercise businesses. I'd like to hear, because we have different group X managers come on, or people have online programs and they always give their 2 cents about this. I'd love to hear, with your 15 plus years experience, why you think it's so important.
Yeah, great. Thank you. It's I come from a different background initially where I used to work in high performance. I used to work with athletes. So I've got a science background and, I really got into the nitty gritty of it. And for me, your programming is how your branding feels. So you can put all your messages out there that our group exercise studio is inclusive and we're friendly and we're fun and all of that kind of thing. You've got all that messaging, but then you walk into the space and it's intimidating and it's really challenging and the instructor's very clicky. Now, all of a sudden, your programming, yes, it's okay to be challenging, but it's not fun and it's not inclusive because your programming is too hard for most of the people who want to walk into your gym when they see your branding. And I find that there's a big gap in our fitness industry where we're currently really only catering for people who are already fit. We create group exercise classes to be really hard, to demand so much of people's nervous systems, to, really get them sweaty and lift heavy. And I think a majority of people, particularly people who aren't engaged in fitness at all, they don't need that. They need the inclusion. They need the take it easy. They need the here's the slow introduction. And COVID's helped to bring that message a little bit more into the mainstream. But I think we need to go deeper, and programming is the complete reflection of how you want your business to run. And again, if you're a business owner and you're not in the fitness side of it, it's hard to see the connection between those two. And for me, the programming, as Emma would put it, is the avocado on your toast. You can make it at home yourself and it's great, but it's so much better when it's got all the bells and whistles and it actually says what it does, right?
That's good. I love that. Yes, I've heard that. I've heard that before. That is very, very good. All right, let's talk about Group X and small group personal training, and why does it work so well together?
Yeah, great question. It's the feeling of community and personalization that people are really looking for when they're wanting to engage in fitness. Group exercise is proven to be one of the biggest retention builders for your club. So if members are engaged in group exercise, they're likely going to stay for longer. If they're engaged in small group training, they'll stay for even longer. If they're engaged in personal training, the relationship again increases. Now, there's only one thing that trumps personal training, and that's personal training with group exercise. So the combination of the two, or having those multiple avenues of connection, we know keeps people within businesses for longer and longer and helps to create behavior change. And I think for a lot of group exercise businesses who don't offer maybe small group or one-on-one, think there's a lot of learning that you can take in from those aspects of one-on-one. It's the feeling of personalizing certain aspects of your member journey or your group exercise classrooms so that the people who are in there actually feel like they're being connected with, actually feel like they're noticed, and the instructor knows who they are and what injuries they might have or what they're working towards. I think that there are a lot of lessons in how trainers engage in their ongoing training with their clients that you can replicate in a group exercise setting, and you know give your members a really detailed questionnaire and have that information handy and ready for people to study and have a look at, so that when members walk in, you know that you've got Dory's coming in. Yep, she loves, I'm just going to make it up now, body pump, and her birthday's in this month, and she's got 2 kids. So, oh, great. I'm going to ask her about how her kids are when she walks in and see what she says today, because that's how I know, and I'm going to start that relationship with her as she comes in and prepares for a group exercise class. And now we've personalized your experience within that group exercise room, and you're also working with your instructors to create personal relationships, which again, we know the more personal a relationship, the more fun the environment that they're working in, the longer they'll stay.
So small group training, whether they're training facilities or small group fitness boutiques, like your boutiques, I think they absolutely rock it when it
Yeah.
comes to recognizing whether this was like their 100th cycle ride, or whether it's whatever their 50th class that they took. And I've seen them do some really cool things with decorating bikes, or they have signs made that they get their picture and post it, which I feel as if the large box clubs, listen, they have great ways to connect, but they don't maybe hit that nail on the head quite as well as the small boutiques do.
100%. And I think big box particular, I mean, I've come from big box. The focus is sales. We know that there's an attrition. And so instead of focusing on keeping the members, the bigger push has always been to find new members, call those leads, get them converted over. And I think that the conversation needs to be looked at is, if you could spend half the time with your new leads and half of that time actually talking to the members who are in your facility, you probably won't need to recruit as much because you'd have way less attrition. You're actually there facilitating connection, community, culture, whether they're within your group exercise rooms or whether they're not. Regardless, this is for everybody now. If you're really looking at creating that space where people feel welcome, where people are actually having a personal relationship with someone, it's going to create a huge impact for them in their transformation in their life. It gives them that safe space, which when we're entrenched in the fitness industry, we feel that safe space. It's so welcoming and so warming, and that's why we were all so devastated when everything closed. But people who don't have that personal relationship within that, they're not going to feel safe there. They're going to feel nervous and intimidated, and everyone's staring at them. And you want those people more than anyone to feel safe, and you want them to feel accepted. And I think group exercise instructors specifically can be a really, really useful person to connect with people, because they're the ones who are already doing the connection work. They're already in front of them. You know, if the person's going to that class, chances are they like that instructor. They're not going to go to an instructor that they don't like very often. And the more you like someone, the easier it is to connect, and the more you want to stay.
Mhm. It was interesting. I interviewed a lady. It's probably been maybe 2 years by now. Joanna Rawbone. She talked about introverts, and she talked about introverts in group X. And it's funny because you always think group X, everybody's loud, hooting and hollering and yelling. And she's like, listen, just to let you know, there's introverts in those group X classes. We kind of like it because we feel like we can hide.
Yeah.
We love watching everybody else hoot and holler and be wild and loud and sing along. She goes, we just don't want to do it, but we enjoy it. So it's interesting how group X can really touch different personality types. It's so engaging. It's so entertaining.
Yeah, you're right. And funnily that you said that, because we actually include that as a part of our instructor training. We go into that very detail, is that you're going to cater for everybody, and it's really important that your introverts don't don't feel, like, oh my God, I have to be included in that. They're allowed to hide in the corner if they want to.
Yes. Okay. So you really did a great job talking about group X with retention of members. Now I'd like to shift gears and talk about group X and retention with your own staff. I just interviewed Brian Weaver, and he was awesome. He talked about sales, and he talked about being versus doing. And sometimes we're so engrossed in the doing that we forget about being in the program, our mind being present and being focused. I'd love for you to talk about the aspects of experience and how they're important for retention in group exercise businesses, both with instructors and staff.
Yeah, great. So I mentioned having a safe space for your members. It's really important that you have that safe space for your instructors. If you're looking traditionally at big box, or even in boutiques, quite often your instructors are your least paid and most contractor based agreements or type employment within the industry. They kind of come in and come out because they might be teaching multiple classes at different venues. And this kind of way of living for instructors is really challenging. They're trying to fill up their timetable with as many classes as possible. And staff rooms in gyms often are there and feel safe for the people who are there all the time, and don't necessarily feel really welcoming for the people who are coming in and out and not necessarily are there. So I think having that space, and making sure that your instructors know that they're allowed to use spaces within the gym for themselves, whether they just want to sit and rest or whether they've got work to do, that they feel comfortable being there, is a really big one. Um, and I talk about like the three things that you can give your instructors, which is learning and development is number one, your pay, and your perks. And those are the three things that are going to influence how you keep your instructors. The one that we help with is learning and development. So, as I mentioned before, because instructors don't necessarily have the same career path as, say, a personal trainer, where there's lots of courses available, where there's lots of availability to upskill and really transcend and become niche, or to get quite a lot of pay for what you do. As a group exercise instructor, you're quite limited to pretty much the same pay rate nearly wherever you go, and you're not really getting anything for it other than the satisfaction of doing your job, having those members in front of you, which is great, which is why they do it. They're really passionate, but it really has a lot of burnout. Their bodies are often overworked, their voices are often overworked. And so if you can give them some upskilling, some team bonding, a growth factor, and the payment can come into that later, but if you're able to facilitate that within your club, or hire out, so have someone else facilitate that learning and development for them, they get growth in their career. They might see more bums and seats in their classes. You might give them more classes based off their learning and development plan and program. You can give them rewards for being able to stay with you and teach a certain amount of classes because they've done X amount of certain learning and development. And those schemes are very rarely in place unless you're in a boutique, and then quite often they don't teach anywhere else other than that boutique anyway. But I'd love to see more of that introduced in the group exercise space, and places for your staff to give you feedback without feeling like they're doing something bad, or that you're not going to listen potentially, either, is a really, really important one.
Hey, Vanessa, great stuff. I really like what you're bringing to the episode today. I have one final question for you, and I just wanted to ask you, what is a class or an instructor assessment, and how does that impact the experience for the members?
Great question. It is essentially what it says it is. It is a form or a process to follow, where you, as the manager, owner of the business, attend a class and you notice or you look for certain criteria, and you can tick if you're seeing the criteria, if you're not seeing it, or if it's at a certain level to or to a certain standard. You could be focusing on the actual instructor itself or just the general theme of the class. So you can do a couple of different types and varieties. The reason why it affects your member experience is because if you have a whole host of different instructors at different levels all teaching the same class, what you might notice is that class message gets completely changed from instructor to instructor. There is very little to no reproducibility, and you might have to work really hard as a business to be able to ensure that your members are actually taking away what you say you're giving. One of the examples that I use who do this really well are Les Mills. Their instructor training and assessment is second to none. It's so good. You know exactly what criteria you need to hit as an instructor, how you need to get better. Is it your voice? Is it your posture? Is it a whole host of different things? You understand what the class is about and what they need to get, what the members need to receive. And a lot of instructors, when they're teaching a class for a business, they don't often get that level of detail from the business as to what they want to teach. And what do you want to give your members from this class? And those are some of the really important questions that you can ask yourself before you even start assessments is, okay, I've got this class on the timetable. What is it? What does it say it does? And does it deliver what it says it does? And then from there, you can see if the instructors that you have who are teaching that class are actually delivering on that first part as well.
I'm so excited that you said about Les Mills, right? Well, first of all, anybody out there listening that follows me knows I'm a Les Mills junkie. When Emma Barry comes onto the show, I literally am just like a groupie, and I have to like get myself together to interview her. And
Yep.
she laughs at me. I even see her at Ursa. I'm like, hey, my God, I got get my picture taken with her, even though I probably already have like 20. But anyhow, we talk a lot about Starbucks, believe it or not, on the podcast, and
Yeah.
because of their business model and how successful they are. And I always say, and I mean this in the utmost compliment, that Les Mills is like Starbucks. You can take your body pump Les Mills class, like here in Florida or there in Australia, and you can go anywhere in the world, and that body pump class is the same exact format. It's consistency, and that's why I always say about Starbucks. I can order my latte here, and I can go in the middle of Montana and order the same latte, and it's the same. It's consistent. So I just agree with you more with Les Mills. You just know what you're getting, consistency. And then the other thing I wanted to add to that, I did a consulting, just a small little consulting job for a club, and I met with the Group X director. And one of her complaints, she was new, she was taking over, and one of her complaints was that they have this class format that's really just special to their club. And they have 3 instructors. And she was telling me that all 3 are kind of different, but they're the same name. And I'm like, and she goes, yeah, well, the members know that the girl that teaches it on Monday, she's, a little bit more heavier cardio. And then they kind of, the girl on Wednesday, she's a little more slower pace. I'm like, yeah, but that's not the same class. It's not consistency. And that's fine for the members that have been there forever and know. But let's say you get a new influx of 10 new ladies or men that want to come in and take the class, and they're blown away because what they thought was Monday, they're not getting on Wednesday, and completely different on Friday. So that's just my sense about that.
100%. And it affects your member retention because, if you've got 3 different instructors teaching the same class, but it's a completely different feel, you're not delivering on what the members expect. And that's where you lose your members in the long term. You don't lose them straight away. They'll stay for a month or 2 and they'll be like, I like this instructor and I only want to go to this instructor's class, but that doesn't fit my timetable. And so by the time I get to Friday, I don't like that instructor. It's the same class, but it's not the same thing. It doesn't do what I want it to do. So I'm just going to try somewhere else.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I think that's one of the issues with Group X. I think that's one of the hindrances of Group X is we have the same issue in cycling. We
Yep.
had a couple different names for some of our cycling classes, like, and but I taught it a specific way and the other person didn't. And then it just ended up into divided. Well, I like Dory, or no, I like, this is a fictitious name, Susie, or whatever. It was the same class. And then if you had to get a sub, that was like, yeah, totally threw everybody in.
Nightmare.
Oh, I just
I
love
feel it.
our FBP listeners out there. Before we even started this, I was like, oh my God, Vanessa, I love group X. Oh my God. Group X and sales. Those are like my two things there. I love group X and sales. So
I've got a big heart for you over here now, Dory. All right.
Ellen Leach comes on and talks about sales, and it's kind of like Emma Berry. I'm like, oh my
Yes.
God. All righty. Well, Vanessa, my goodness, what a absolutely amazing episode that you delivered for all of our FBP family. They're just gonna love this, especially our Group X family. They're absolutely gonna love it. So thank you so much for coming
Thank you.
on. Any one last piece of advice that you might have? Oh my gosh, Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your awesome experience with all of our FBP family out there. And also, everybody, check out Exercise to Experience. I will put the link to Exercise to Experience on our show notes so they can, Vanessa, so they can click on and nosy around and take a look at your website. And then I'll also put your contact information on there. So if anybody has any questions, bypass me, leave me out of it. They can go straight to you, go right straight to the source.
Please, love questions, love being able to figure out. I'm a problem solver at heart, so yeah, whatever problems you might be feeling, ask the question. You never know what answer you can get, right?
All right. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa, and welcome to the FBP family.